Hello there, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on Fire Engineering Radio. Thank you for listening in. This is the podcast, as you know, that is dedicated to our great volunteer fire service and getting everyone to uphold the belief that developing and displaying and maintaining a professional image, a professional reputation, well, that's the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, paid or volunteer. And as you know, I say it every time, that true professionalism is never defined by a paycheck. So thank you for being here. Tom Merrill here. I appreciate you listening in. I hope your summer is going well. I hope you're finding time to relax and enjoy friends and family and good times. I can't believe we're already into mid-July. It's been a time that I'm trying to take a step back and catch up, because in fall, I'm just going to be on the road quite a bit. I think I have 11 presentations between like September and November scattered across this great country, New Mexico, Maine, South Dakota, Florida, my home state in New York. And I was just at the National Volunteer Fire Council Training Summit in Utah last month. And I said, okay, that's it. That's my last presentation for a while. Summer's going to be a time to relax. And I found myself getting involved in several other projects, doing some work for fire engineering, some writing, some webinars, also the National Volunteer Fire Council. We're doing, for fire engineering, I'm doing another installment we did a couple months ago with my good friend Mike Dugan, talking about big box fires. So we're going to be working on that at the end of the month. And it's just been busy, but that's okay, right? That's what keeps us young, so they say. And hey, if I come out to your area, I'd love to see you. My website, the professionalvolunteerfiredepartment.com, lists where I'm going to be traveling to. So if I come out to your area, please come out and see me, say hi, and I'd like to get to know you. I love doing that. That's why I love traveling around this country. And it always reminds me just how many great people there are in our fire service. So on this episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, we're gonna take a closer look at something that's been creating quite a buzz in our fire service. You know, a few months ago, it was the OSHA standards that was creating the buzz, and we talked about that. And I was just thinking I should probably do an update. Maybe our next episode, I'll do an update as to where we stand on that. But another buzz that's creating a stir is this topic of NERIS, or the National Emergency Response Information System. And now, if you've heard the name, but you aren't quite sure what it means for your department, you're probably not alone. It's the next evolution in how the fire service is going to collect and report and use the data that we can collect at these calls nationwide. And it's going to replace NIFRS, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, although, you know, in my travels, I do see some people that still don't do some of the reporting that we'd like them to do. But NIFRS, of course, is the National Fire Incident Reporting System, and we've been using that for decades. And this new system, this new program, NERIS, is going to be a more modern, more flexible, and maybe more aligned with the real world challenges that we're facing today. And hopefully you've been using NIFRS. Hopefully you've been completing fire and incident reports, because it is part of a professional operation. So today I want to talk to Chief Tom Jenkins, who's been deeply involved in the rollout of NERIS. We're going to explore what's changing, why this matters, why departments should do accurate and complete reports, and what departments, especially volunteer and combination agencies, need to know about this NERIS system, which is coming soon to your area. It's already rolled out in several states. We're going to talk about how it's got to go live January 1st of 26 for everybody. So hopefully you got the memo. Again, it's mandatory, volunteer and career, January 1st, 2026. It's online. So joining me, as I said, I have Chief Tom Jenkins. He's going to talk about where we're coming from and why this is important. And he is a senior advisor and a research manager for UL Fire Safety. And he's been deeply involved in the NERIS project. And before getting into the NERIS team, he was a fire chief for the city of Rogers, Arkansas, where he led over 160 career firefighters. And he has served as a professor for several colleges and universities. And in 2015, he was elected to serve on the board of directors for the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And he was president and chairman of the board of the IAFC in 2017 and 18. And in addition to his public service, he's a regular presenter. He's always at all the different fire conferences and emergency medical conferences, and he serves on many boards and committees. And his biography is long, it's accomplished, and I'm honored to welcome him onto the show. So, Chief, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule.
No, good to see you, Tom.
So I know this has been creating quite a buzz, and we're going to dive into it in a minute. But before we do that, I always like to start off with my guests so the audience gets to know them a little bit better. Can you just talk about your fire service journey? What got you into the fire service? What was your career path? And let us know what you're all about.
That's a good question. I think I'm still trying to tackle that myself. But no, I started as, like, I'm sure some of your listeners, as a young volunteer in high school, transitioned to be a career firefighter. And really the rest is history. I had the fortune I've worked in a couple of states, and I chiefed, my last gig was 15 years in the chair as chief. And that was a great department, large enough to tackle some real challenges, small enough to still be nimble and dynamic, that you could, be innovative. And if you screwed up, you could kind of go back to the drawing board. And it wasn't a complete reboot of the computer, as they say. But, along the way, was just fortunate enough to meet the right people. And by virtue of that, become affiliated with some great organizations. And then when this project, NERIS, came calling, I think it resonate with you that there's only so many times that you get an opportunity to help out people. And when on a scale like this, we're going to be able to help 1.1 million firefighters, career and volunteer, who help a lot of people in this country, the first line of defense. And so what a great obligation, what a great opportunity. And so we're right in the middle of it. Without a doubt, probably the most rewarding and busy time of my career in the fire service, for sure.
Yeah, and I know I sat in your class at FDIC, and you really gave a great presentation talking about NERIS, and it really opened my eyes. And that's when I first jotted down, ooh, this would be a good podcast topic. But let's start off before NERIS, like pre-NERIS, I'll call it, right? Let's talk a little bit about NIFRs. And can you explain, like, there's so many people in the fire service today that they don't even know that NIFRs is something that came along, a couple decades ago. Do you know anything about the early days? I remember as a young officer, and maybe was it the late 80s? I know I was a young officer, and our chief came in and said, we got to start doing these new reports. And we even hand wrote them originally. And I remember him bringing in a stack of previous interdepartment reports that now we had to handwrite the NIFRs. So if my memory's right, I was a young officer in the starting in 1986. So somewhere 86 to 90, maybe. Can you explain where NIFRs came from?
Yeah, it's a byproduct of the 1974 Fire Prevention and Control Act signed by President Nixon. But operationally, that's about the right time frame. I mean, just because you sign a bill doesn't mean it happens overnight.
Yeah.
And your memory of it would be accurate to everybody else. It's pre-me. I started in the late 90s, and INFRS, I don't know, you get a lot of folks that villainize INFRS, mainly because I think that firefighters in general don't exactly have an affinity for this data thing. It's only in the last generation or two that we've begun to appreciate the kind of information we can get about, how we staff, how we deploy, how we do our job, what the risk is in our communities using data, that it's the best reconnaissance tool out there. And it's just as important to keep firefighters safe. But, when INFRS came around, I don't know that was the spirit of the fire service. We have it a little bit easier today. The biggest issue with INFRS, besides the historical value, is that it just wasn't updated as frequently as it needed to be. That the paper form that you recall is actually the reason that if you know anything about INFRS, you start to memorize all these codes in your head.
Yeah,
because it started on paper.
People have their favorite codes that they're just plugging them in there, and I don't honestly know sometimes how accurate it is because They know
It
the
wasn't.
113 is burnt food, and they like the 113. And even if there was a little extension, I don't want to do a fire. I'm just going to do 113 for the burnt food.
That's so common that it's just it was a common criticism of most fire departments that they knew they had data input problems. It was seen as a chore at the fire station, very little value derived of it. And the best example is just that, they really last updated infers the year I got hired.
Wow.
In the late 90s. And so I was able to do a full career and retire, and it's still the same, still the same system. I mean, the codes are the same, and it's easy. I was talking to a guy kind of engaging online who, was just being kind of critical of what we're doing. I think firefighters sometimes forget that, like, our traditional mission, like the things that they built infers for in the 70s, those are all still very relevant. Like every incident type, none of our traditional mission has gone away. It's just between 1974 and the present, 50 plus years now, we do a lot more than we used to, right? We are on the front lines of every social problem that exists that doesn't require a gun to solve, that doesn't require our law enforcement comrades. And there's some blending there these days. So we just needed a new system, and the old system got a little stale. So that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah, so that was some of the problems that were addressed about, okay, we've got to modernize, we've got to come up with a better way to track this data. So what are you looking to track differently with the new system then? What wasn't being captured, and how can this data that you're capturing now help us in the fire service?
I think that you don't have a long enough podcast for me to comprehensively answer that, but I'll hit on a few things. Just a good point. One is infers wasn't geospatial in nature. You could input an address, you could do things, but you had to take that information and actually geocode it. There was some effort to take infers data and put it on a map and have some value derived from where the incident occurs. And the where of what we do is pretty dang important when you think about the strategic positioning of resources, stations, people. And so we're building a system that is geospatial first, that all the inputs into the system require the where so that we can tell that part of the story accurately in first class. The other thing we're doing is we're trying to simultaneously make we're trying to reduce the data entry burden on the firefighter. We want to make it easier for the firefighter to give us better information. And if you take a moment and just think about what I said, you understand there's some level of hypocrisy there, that it's hard to do better and make it easy. Right. You don't get healthier by being lazier, kind of thing. But that's exactly what we're doing. We've renamed and almost, we've eliminated all the codes, right? Like I think of NIMS and the impact on like radio communication to go to clear text. It's similar here that what we've done is we've tried to refine and align all the incident types, adding some where we had blank spots. Others we've merged or we're not using that were obscure or just not of significant importance. We've reduced the number of incident types by around 24%. And at the same time, we're asking more information about what firefighters do on the incident scene. We have the opportunity, it's optional for tactical timestamps so that we can begin to understand how well, not just how quickly we get there, which you could kind of do in the old system, but we want to know how well we do when we get on scene. That I think fire departments of a professional stature will find value in knowing not only did we get there quick, but when we got there, we searched the building quick, we put water on the fire quick, we established command, established RIT. We did all these things that are arguably more important. We did it quickly, we did it effectively, and it's a system that is just modernized in every corner, including even mutual aid. Like this is a team business. And so we've really doubled down on the ability to look and understand interagency interactions with the system. So no shortage of examples, Tom.
Is there going to be challenges for departments? Like, are we going to be entering even more information? I know firefighters, especially on the volunteer side, when time is their most precious commodity. You mentioned establishing RIT or some of the other factors that you brought up. Is there going to be fields that the firefighters are going to have to enter that now in a NERIS report
For the most part, the answer is no. Like, it's just not, because we want to reduce the data entry burden. Now, what I think you'll find, now a little bit of this is culture and less about technical, is we've designed the system. And so we have a NERIS app that's free, but you also have these third party vendors. There's a lot of them. They've been partners with us, is how I look at it. And everybody's user interface for how they're going to show the folks that are using their system is going to be a little different. But firefighters are bad writers, they're good clickers. And so we've tried to streamline everywhere. It's true. And so we've tried to streamline things that if we can make it easier for them, I think firefighters will look at the new system. And if they value the job, they understand kind of wearing their big hat, they understand what we're trying to do, they'll look at this and see the questions that we're asking. We're asking for the first time, was anybody rescued in the fire? You think about the old system, most fundamental thing is life safety. We've never had any accounting for our impact on life when it is saved from these situations. I think when firefighters see that, that will resonate with them, and they'll go, you know what, even if this particular part is going to take me longer, it's worth it. And the way we look at it is that we will also want to make sure that anything that we can automate, that we can streamline, that we're going to do that. And we'll be back. This is not one bite at the apple, right? We're not going to deploy this and leave it alone for 5 years. We're going to constantly be at it. So does it mean more work? Sometimes it could. But I think when you look at total duration, how long it's really taken to tell the story, it'll be a wash.
Is it a narrative they're going to be typing, or is it a lot of just pre-formatted fill-in? Like, did you make a rescue? Obviously, let's say the answer is yes. Does it then expand beyond that? And is there a lot of narrative, or is it a lot of already canned comments that they're clicking on?
There's 2 narratives within the system that are optional. They're at the very end. They come with some direction to tell us, like, what impediments and obstacles did you have? So things that are out of the norm, and also just kind of final disposition of the incident, but they're optional. What we have done is we beta tested this against 66 total fire departments across the country, from the biggest of the big to the smallest of the small, and so we feel confident that while we may not be perfect, right? You're not going to take 1.1 million firefighters and have them all give you an A+ on it, but we're confident that we've designed a product and a system that is robust and realistic and with the fire service enough that it will be, instantaneously successful. And then we just have to begin to mop up, right, and find ways to improve. So it is a lot of, its ease of use has always been front and center.
How long have you been working on this?
That's an even crazier question. The contract was signed in May of 2023 with 0 people, 0 employees. And so to think that we just passed May of 2025 and we're in operation full steam ahead, you don't have to be a software engineer or, a professional in the development world to know that that's warp speed. Yeah. So right at about 25, 26 months.
And who ordered it? Like, I know one of the questions, where does this information go? Who's in charge of it? And who said, okay, we got to get from NIFRS or NIFRS to NERIS? Who gave this directive?
Well, there's 2 parts. I think there's probably 2 answers to your question. Whose data is it? The cool thing is we always get to point it back to the fire department, that this is the data ownership in NERIS it's your data. It's your organization, your entity, your department. And the National Fire Data Center, your state fire marshal, like they're consumers of it. They want it. They want to know what's going on in the state and the country. There's 1,000 reasons why we're in this together to try to make the world a little safer, one call at a time. But it was originated in a partnership with the United States Fire Administration. The National Fire Data Center is part of USFA, and then it was working with the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate, and UL Fire Safety Research Institute is the contractor on the project. So what you see is UL and USFA and DHS Science and Technology all coming together because we recognize that in a world of Lahaina's and Pasadena's and what's going on in Idaho with those firefighters who were murdered on an incident scene, to natural disasters in Texas. Nobody is confused that we have to take care of our firefighters who are taking care of the public. And one of the best ways we do that is data, information, analytics, to make sure that they're resourced and trained and equipped appropriately.
So they're going to be taking a look at this data, a lot more data than was compiled under NERIS, and be able to help firefighters down the road by planning better training, maybe allocation of resources. Is that are decisions going to be made on funding and things like that with this information?
I think the answer to all of it's yes. It's easy, I think, to understand that decision makers and leaders within departments need information to know when to turn left, when to turn right, when to take a 3-person staff fire company to 4, when to transition a volunteer department to a couple of paid individuals during the day to supplement volunteer staffing. I mean, because there's 27,000 fire departments, they're just very unique, right? They all have different questions, and data is the common denominator in all of them. So it's easy to talk about leaders needing this information. And there's a cultural thing with leadership too. Like, you've been a chief. I've been a chief. I know a lot of colleagues that made decisions based on good stories, the propaganda of the day, the availability of free land. That's not going to work in the years to come. Like, we have to have data to defend our position and to take care of our firefighters. And so they're a primary beneficiary, Tom, but I think that this system, you mentioned training. I think that this system will help feed training programs and calendars and curriculum. We've never really extracted information from incident response and used it to say, where do we need to train better? But those tactical timestamps I mentioned earlier, right? If you're able, imagine you're in a decent sized city, and you're able to denote that one particular shift takes too long to get water on the fire. Well, if I'm a training chief or training captain, I'm able to go, if I know that the C shift takes on average X minutes longer to put water on the fire than the other two, knowing that there's going to be some equal distribution of incidents across those 3 shifts. I don't know, that gives me a chance to make a decision about how I construct training, that maybe we can make it more precise and laser guided, as opposed to how training, curriculum and training plans for departments are constructed today. But I think it's even one more than that. Like, we're designing a system that the most important job in the firehouse, in the fire department, I think you'd agree with me, is that of the company officer. That's not the chief. You find me a good company officer, I'll find you a chief that doesn't have a lot of headaches, and where things are getting done. Well, we design this system oftentimes thinking about what could have value today and tomorrow for our company officers and the firefighters there that want to do good, that want to be better, that want to be trained, that want to be effective, and that want to go home at some point in time. And so it is a complex, fast-moving project with a lot of dividends for a lot of stakeholders.
Who gives them the data? Is it something that they're going to be able to go in and get the data themselves, or is there going to be some sort of reports coming out based on the data nationwide?
You'll have different theaters of data in different areas, right? So NERIS will have analytics, dashboards that are consumable to people, different audiences. If you're using a software vendor, no doubt they're going to be doing that too. So you kind of you get one for free, you get another one with your software vendor. And then, the nice thing about this development team we have with NERIS is these are not a bunch of, contractors who once were up and running 100%, are out the door. These are people who get to, now hone their skills to help with, the analytics, the geospatial understanding of what we do, and just make it better. Yeah. So that our fire chiefs and our fire officers have, the information they need. And
is there you mentioned like certain new types of data that's going to be compiled, such as water on fire. Are we going to have to train ourselves to maybe do certain benchmarks? Because some areas probably don't acknowledge when water's on the fire. They just, it's just nothing. They haven't done it. Are there things like that we might need to add to our training curriculum because the new NERIS is going to collect that type of data?
Yeah, that data in particular is optional. And so I think that fire departments will see value in it and go, that would be handy to know. Is there an area of town? Is there a shift? Is there a situation in which we do better or we do worse? And so I think the answer is yes. Like there's just inevitably a training curve here, and we will see people, migrate and, look at ways to integrate NERIS into other areas of departmental operations appropriately.
Okay. And did you say earlier that there's going to be no more numbers like the old 321 for emergency medical or any? It's not going to be the numbers anymore.
That's correct. Yeah, we tried to use plain text. There were more than a few incident types and infers throughout the years that I remember people coming to me and going, "What is this? When would I use this?" And sometimes they were tough for me. So we've really done, and with those beta testing departments, we've added some, we've renamed some, and we'll continue to do that. Okay. Like there's just no doubt in my mind, but we want to be very deliberate about that too.
Sounds like you put a lot of thought into this. What are some of the challenges that you might have identified that departments are going to face? Is there a monetary challenge? Is there just going to be some training issues? And how do they get it? I mean, there's a lot of things I could ask on that, but let's start with challenges. Do you see challenges? Have you identified challenges? Obviously the departments some are well-financed, some are poorly financed, some are big, some are small, but we're telling all 27,000 fire departments by January 1st, we want you all to be on NERIS. Is there anything that someone's going to come back and say, here's why we can't, that you can identify?
No, not that's a real obstacle. We've designed it so that it's accessible everywhere. You can use it on your phone or a desktop dial-up computer. You have the free app from NERIS. You can use a records management vendor. So any way you want to connect, you can connect. I think that the biggest obstacle is this, Tom, that number one, it's change. And so if there's one question I deal with a lot, it's in the old system, we did this. I don't see this in the new system. And that's not going to work, right? We're not going to spend a bunch of time comparing where there's no reason to compare. We don't want to ever go backwards, but just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean we need to continue to do it that way. And then you have some data input challenges, right? We just have to make sure culturally that we do better collecting data, timely, accurate, that has to change. Otherwise, a new, modernized, robust data system like NERIS is just not worth what it could be without firefighters who take the time to do it right.
Gotcha. And if the firefighters don't do it, is there going to be a penalty?
No, it's not a mandatory system. Neither's infers, right. Unless mandated by the state. Different states have rules. It is a requirement for federal grants, but even that, it's I don't know of any realistic reason that a department would not want to participate in NERIS, right? It's just I hate to be fundamental and common sense, but I think usually firefighters get that kind of logic.
Right.
It's just we need this. We're always stronger together. And I know of no department that doesn't want to participate. There are small, ultra small, under-resourced departments that will always have challenges. They have challenges in every corner of operation, but we really are trying to make it streamlined so that it's as easy and accessible as possible.
Do you know what the percentage of departments that participate in NIFRS is? Do you guys know what that is? Is it?
I've seen it before. I would be lying to you to spit out a percentage. I can tell you I've seen some state-by-state breakdowns. There are some wonderful states. Mississippi, shockingly, is like in the 90th percentile. But it just varies. And it usually has a lot to do with the state fire marshal's office. You find folks at the state level who can be intermediaries between, national and local. And when they really participate with those local departments, there does seem to be a correlation.
And you were saying also for the departments that maybe don't have a lot of software in their department for inventory management, personnel management, and incident management, this isn't requiring them to go get a third party. There's a free app that'll satisfy the NERIS, the work on NERIS, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we've made sure we've removed any obstacle from a department that wants to participate. The only thing is we've got to find them an internet connection somewhere. But it's 2025. That's just kind of how things. You can't. I don't know that I can buy tickets to my kids' high school sporting event anymore without an internet connection. So it's a thing.
And it's cloud based, correct? And I know we send our data in once a month here in New York. This will be cloud-based, real-time uploading.
Yep. All the need for somebody to go extract a file, an email, or upload, that'll go away. That as incident reports are created and updated, they'll be consumable by everybody that would need to have access to them.
And even after you upload it, you can get back in and modify it if needed. Where does it go? I know the cloud. Where's the?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the answer. It goes into your nearest node. But within your nearest node, your state would have access to it in the National Fire Data Center to view the report. So the data always remains that of the department, and it's viewable by those other stakeholders.
And let's talk about the rollout. I believe it's described as a slow rollout. It started a few months ago. And if you could just explain to the listeners how it's going and how is it working.
Man, it shockingly is going good. Like this is my first time rolling out a national project like this, so my apprehension was palpable. But we've been in FEMA regions 2, 4, and 6. We just started 6 at the 1st of July, and it's going great. We've got over 8,000 departments that have been invited to the system. And we have a healthy percentage that have confirmed their profile, set up their department information, well over 200 now that have converted from the old system to the new for incident reporting. But what I would encourage people to do is go to the NERIS website. It's neris.fsri.org. You can actually go to that website and go /onboarding. You can see the FEMA region rollout map, know when we're going to be in your area. And that's really what people need to do. The most fundamental thing that departments need to do is make sure they're paying attention. And if they don't know an answer to a question or they don't understand what we're doing, reach out. I just hung up with somebody from Kentucky before I called you and joined it here. We try to make sure that we are boots on the ground and available for people.
So they go to that site and they see that their state is now rolling out. They can, if they have a vendor they've worked with for a software, they can work with that vendor, see if the vendor needs to be approved, correct? The vendor needs to have some sort of knowledge about this NERIS. I believe there's a certification for the vendor, isn't there? Or they get an official stamp of approval.
Yeah, we call it a NERIS compatibility badge, and that is available. You can go to that website and look at everybody who's been approved. But it's simple for departments. If you're in an area that is rolling out and you haven't heard from us, then you need to reach out to us. That means we probably didn't have good contact information for your agency. You can search and see if your department is in the system. So you go to that website, you can search for departments in NERIS. We have people well ahead of the rollout telling us, hey, I can't find my department. We can fix those ahead of time. But all it takes is a department. If you're using a vendor, you enter what's called an integration key or a client ID. And it's just a series of numbers and letters and stuff. And that allows you to use that vendor to submit your incidents. But you still want to take some time to set up your profile, within the node of the national system. It is just not a very hard process. I had a metro-sized department that did theirs and all their stations and all of the characteristics that they had to input in just over an hour. So not the most time-consuming thing.
And for those listeners that do have a third-party vendor, with our third-party vendor, we're getting it downloaded so we can practice on it. Still using the old NIFRs because we have the rest of the year to do that, but we want our members to start getting proficient at using it before we do the cutover. And everyone, Tom, has to cut over by January 1st, correct?
The old system NFRs will mothball, essentially be decommissioned after midnight on the 31st of December, 2025. And so NERIS will be the system for incident reporting for fire departments in the country after that. It's not mandatory, but if they're going to participate, that will be the deadline to get on board.
Awesome. And any other key features that maybe I know we just briefly covered them, but what are some of these improved features? I know you mentioned a few. Is there any others that you want to harp on? And I know it's going to improve, obviously, decision-making even and resource allocation. And there's so much they're going to be able to do with this data.
Well, there's probably two things I would say to your listeners. The one thing that I would highlight is nobody proclaims that this is a perfect system. It wasn't divinely inspired. And what that means to you is we are committed to making sure that we continue to listen, improve, expand this system. And so just because there's opportunity to make things better, it doesn't mean that we won't. It also means that, if there's something that I would want your listeners to know is that it's designed to just capture information that we've never captured before, whether it's those civilian rescues, whether this is an incident that involves violence against a firefighter, whether it's a mass casualty or an active shooter incident. We just have a more robust data system with NERIS, and we're committed to making sure that it continues to reflect the risk that our firefighters operate in.
And listeners too, if you haven't done fire reporting, this is the time to jump on board and start. Go onto the website as you described there. It's free. You don't need a third-party vendor, but there's really no reason to, and it's going to benefit your department. And it's going to benefit our fire service as a whole. Now, I did have somebody reach out to me and say, and I know you said they have to be NERIS certified. The vendor does. How do they do that? They have to get to work with you, or do they have to submit? Because I had somebody reach out and their vendor wasn't listed, so they were wondering how do they tell that? What do they tell that vendor? Does that vendor need to do?
Yeah, they need to reach out to us. It's not a hard process. We had vendors that were being, earning those compatibility badges as early as January this year. But it's just a process just to show that they have, essentially the development chops to interact with the system using an API. That's just a pipeline to connect their software to ours, basically. And it's not, in the development world, it is certainly not the most difficult thing to earn the compatibility badge, but it does take time and it takes some effort. And so I know that we always seem to have a few in the pipeline working. So if their vendor's not ready yet, I'm sure they will be shortly if they're working on it.
And you know the old expression, you said it before, change is hard, and firefighters hate two things, right? Quote Alan Brunacini there, changing the way things are. Can we tell the listeners, obviously it depends on the type of incident, but is there an average, once they're proficient at doing these reports, average time frame to finish a report?
No, but it depends on too many variables. Yeah. What we did find during beta testing, apples to apples, is that it was either a wash. These are people very familiar with the old system, not familiar with the new system, and it was a wash. Or there was one department that showed that it was quicker. I mean, 20, 30% quicker, which is substantial when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, this has been great information. And again, it's common, right? And again, there are departments that don't do much reporting, and there's no reason not to, and you're making it as easy as possible. Can you give the website again, if somebody needs the free version, somebody's looking for information, how do they read up about this or get the free version of this software?
You bet. Just reach out to us. Go to the NERIS website. There's a lot of resources and frequently asked questions there that you can probably obtain any answer that you might need to a question you have. But it's NERIS, NERIS.FSRI.org.
And is there training available on that site too? Frequently asked questions. Are there tutorial videos that people can look at?
Yes, sir. We publish new videos and new tutorials and guides. We're doing it all the time. It's juggling a lot, right? Because you're developing a system and the training has to come a little behind that curve. But we are fast at work, and people can have our assurance that we'll continue to make sure anything they need training on, we'll make it happen. And
we're in July now. So how many states has it rolled out to so far?
It's 3 FEMA regions. It would be around a dozen states.
Then again, you're doing it by FEMA regions. What are you doing? A few regions a month?
Just one a month for the most part. There are a few FEMA regions that will double up on, I think, starting in October, just to complete. There's 10 across the country. We didn't start till May, so we have to have a few months where we double up.
And I don't know if you want to do this or not, but I'm going to put you on the spot. What if people wanted to reach out to you and ask you a question? Are you willing to talk? You just said you just talked to someone in Kentucky, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always try to be, available and accessible to folks. And so they can reach out to me. My email is thomas.jenkins@ul.org, thomas.jenkins@ul.org. Always happy to visit and lend a hand to solve some problems and answer some questions. So it's a blessing to be able to connect with so many folks.
Is there any thought as to what it's looking like 5-10 years down the road? Is this going to last as long as NIFRS, or is this going to be ever changing? Any idea?
It will last longer than that's one of the things that we're focused on, is making sure that we never allow this thing to grow cobwebs, that it stays relevant and pertinent. And so that requires us to frequently update it and keep it alive, much like other softwares. I mean, whether you're a CAD or you look at the folks on NEMSIS that are doing EMS reporting, we just have to stay with it. We have to keep it relevant, and we have to continue to listen to our stakeholders to make sure that we have a system that's working for them.
Yeah. Any last words you'd like to say about the NERIS, and or anything that maybe we haven't covered that is important for the listeners to know?
No, I think first of all, just Tom, thanks for having me as a guest. Encourage your listeners, reach out anytime. Don't be bashful. We want you in the system. We need you in the system. We're all stronger in this work when we collaborate. And so just, folks can just make sure that there's a point person assigned, that they're familiar with what we're doing. I think that's mission critical to making sure it's a success for your local department. And we're partners. We're on your roster. We want to see you succeed.
That's one thing that, like I said, when I sat in that class at FDIC, I could tell right away how just you were working so hard to collaborate with everybody. And that came across that you want to be partners. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule, Chief, for joining me here today.
Anytime.
One thing I neglected to say as I wrap up here: don't sign off yet, because it's gotta upload. So don't sign off right away. But thank you for spending the time again. The new NERIS is coming out. It's already out, and it's going to be going. The only one you're going to be able to use as of January 1st, because NIFRS will be mothballed, as Chief Jenkins said. So hopefully you're aware of it, and hopefully you picked up a few points today. And if you weren't aware of it, hopefully now you are, and you know where to go to get more information. So this is going to be a system that's built for the fire service, and it's been built with the fire service. So that's the good part. It's going to allow for better tracking, faster tracking, better data collection. And, the way we use and collect data certainly has changed over the years, and it's time that we evolve with change. So it's going to be challenging, but it's also an opportunity to improve how we tell our story. And it is part of being a professional operation, doing good, thorough, comprehensive reports. So, and it's not going to be that hard. So thanks again for listening in. Thanks to my guest, Tom Jenkins. Been talking about this National Emergency Response Information System for the last 45 minutes or so. And remember, 1126, be ready, because it's coming. So thanks again. If anybody wants to reach out to me, tamerrill63@aol.com, or you can go on my Facebook page, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. And hopefully I will see you out at some of the conferences I'll be going to. My next podcast will be in August. I don't want to think about that, because that means summer is going to be going way too fast. So thanks for listening in, folks. I really appreciate it. And always remember that, hey, it's 2025, and your residents are due professional service that's delivered by professional firefighters who represent a professional organization. Take care, folks.